South Africa is super meaningful, as you said. The Springbok narrative, like you've been watching the Springboks play and all the commentators always like they're playing for something bigger. And it is because, people in South Africa, they need entrepreneurship. They need us to help build the economy, which is a pretty special thing to be able to do. Like wake up every day and know you're rewarding hundreds of thousands of people for spending their hard-earned money.
Hello and welcome to the Real Good podcast by Neighbourgood, a podcast designed for the next generation of property entrepreneurs and investors, where our guests share with us their strategies, their stories, and their tactics on all things entrepreneurial and property investment related. My name is Murray Clark and I'm your host. Today we have with us Adam Reilly, a close friend and one of the most talented young founders I've ever had the good fortune of meeting. Adam is the CEO and co-founder of Maholla app, a Fintech company that is doing incredible things across Africa. He is someone who I look up to despite his very young age. We've become close friends over the years that I've been in Cape Town, and he has so much valuable insight to share in his entrepreneurial journey along the way. Stay tuned and enjoy. Okay, welcome, Adam. As usual, it's so good to see you. I'm wanting to jump right in. It's often really difficult to manage stress as an entrepreneur, and then just finding balance between living some form of harmony between work and home and your partners and your relationships. And I know you do it better than most. I'm keen to understand how.
Definitely don't have it at a perfect science just yet. But I think I like to think about 4 pillars like diet, stress, sleep, exercise. Just 4 pillars to constantly lean on. Like if I'm ever feeling like super stressed or overwhelmed or whatever, I'm just like, okay, am I doing those 4 things on a daily or weekly basis? And if I'm not, make sure I reintroduce them, because they just have unbelievable effects on your mental health and your ability to have clarity and make decisions. So I think those are the pillars that I like to lean on. And then in terms of balance, I think that when you're building a company or you're trying to become a professional athlete or you're doing anything that requires a lot of work, I think that it's impossible to have balance completely on a day-to-day basis. So I almost like to think of balance in longer term cycles. So if I maybe there's 3 months where you actually just don't have balance. You're just working so hard, but that's what you need to do. But you need to make sure that when you look at your life in a year period or in a 3-year period, it's you've done all the things you need to do. You've made sure that outside of work or what you're trying to achieve, you've developed relationships with the person you love or with your family, or maintain them in such a way that you can feel proud of who you are.
Right.
And I think that's really important. And then last thing is just focus. I think life requires sacrifice. You can't be everything and do everything at once. So for me, I'm really focused on my work and the hobbies that I enjoy, and then a few relationships in my life that are really important to me, and I just give them all of my time and energy.
I want to go back to the 4 because I want to expand on it, because you have this habit of being able to explain things so simply and the penny drops. I'm like, how is this guy actually in his 20s? Honestly. Stress, diet, exercise, and sleep. Okay. So what do you do for each?
So I think that they all work together,
okay.
Particularly sleep. I think I would argue sleep is actually probably the most important one. But if I'm not exercising and eating correctly, I don't sleep as well. Or if I'm super stressed, I don't sleep as well. So for exercise, I could try to build a routine and I lock it in. And I almost am rule bound by it. There's this saying that rules to achieve your desired behavior create your default behavior. So you lock them in and you stick to them. Whether that's an hour of exercise a day or 30 minutes of exercise a day, you get it in there and you stick to it. And then diet, for me, I've always been interested in it. So from a young age, I've learned what works for me and my body. It's like eating lots of vegetables, avoiding anything that overstimulates me, like sugar, etc., because it makes me feel a bit cloudy. So I just stick to what I know, and once again, just be very disciplined. And then stress is a hard one. But I feel like exercise helps with stress because it creates a clear mind. And when you've had a good night's sleep, you're just way biologically and chemically better off to make good decisions. And the more good decisions you make as a leader, the less stressed you'll be. So it's this catch-22 because stress makes you more stressed. Like my dad used to have this ridiculous saying. It drove me crazy at school, but he was like, when you stress, don't stress. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How does that help me? But it is almost like your job as a leader is to make good decisions, like first and foremost. And if you're stressed, you can't do that. So sleep well, get lots of exercise, and eat well, and it'll help you make good decisions, and you'll feel less stressed.
What does a typical day look like in your life?
Typical day is I normally wake up quite early and I go for a walk outside. Like even if it's 20, 30 minutes, I just find like that oxygen intake and being outside like before the day starts off in a crazy way is super helpful. Also, naturally, your mind will gravitate towards the most important things on that walk. So it's almost like this filtering mechanic of like, okay, I'm going for a walk, clearing my head. And by clearing my head, like naturally, today's most important objectives are going to just kind of filter into my mind. And then I like to try deal with the most important things in the day first. So just kind of get going. First 2-3 hours, just like try get the most important big wins out the day. And then it's normally meetings after that. And whether it's with my team or customers or investors or new relationships that we're trying to build, like I'm spending a hell of a lot of time with people, engaging with them, telling them the Maholla story, which I absolutely love. It's exhausting too, because you're just giving up so much of yourself and your energy. And then end of the day, I normally like to do like some form of wind down exercise too. It's a walk or a swim or a boxing session. Have a good healthy dinner with my girlfriend and spend some quality time with her, and then do a bit more work at night. And the nice thing is my girlfriend Meg works for an American company, so she works in the evening. So if I have to do a little bit of wrap-up work for the day, she's understanding of it.
Okay, so it's like not just me and Kim then who work at night.
Not just you guys.
It's also you two. Okay. We must start a support group, dude. The email trap, like it's something that I find myself, if I'm not aware of it, I can get caught up answering emails that actually aren't really priorities. And I'm sure it's not just email. Like you can get pulled in a million directions. I'm interested to see how you like manage your priorities.
Yep.
As a CEO and as someone who's doing what you're doing, like how do you avoid like being pulled from left to right in any given day based on the million things that you've got to do?
Yeah, I think the email trap is one I'm still a victim to on a regular basis. Like, I think like almost an element of self-control is important. I think the thing with email is like you normally have 10 or 15 or 20 or however many emails you've sent out that you're quite looking forward to seeing what the answer is. So it's like, it's almost like, I mean, email's done that so well. Like we must remember email's a product. Like when you post on Instagram, like there's this dopamine rush in seeing like, have you got any responses to it? So I think email, like all these other digital products, is a communication tool. And at the end of the day, like tools were invented by cavemen to help you be more productive. So I think that's how I try to look at digital tools. So with email, I fall into the trap for sure, but my best way to try to deal with it is just to like sort of create 2 or 3 blocks in the day of deep focus where you're removing synchronous communication like WhatsApp, email, Slack, all these tools, and you just focused on like your core objectives. And I think that starts by knowing what your core objectives are. And I think if anyone asks you what your biggest priority or your biggest 3 priorities are, you should be able to tell them. Because that's how you know what to work on when you have those sort of free blocks. And then building a relationship with your team where they also know what their biggest priorities are. So if there's a day where like you have to have deep focus and you can't communicate as much as you would like to, your team know what their priorities are. and there's almost like priority ownership within your organization where your team can get on with it, and they're proud and they care and they're detailed enough for you to know that they'll be executing in such a way that you may be actually just getting in their way by communicating with them too much.
Do you have like 10 running priorities, or do you have like 1 or 2?
So definitely have a long list of priorities, but I would like to say that I could refine those into 3 if I had to. Like, these are my 3 most important priorities.
Okay. And that's what you focus on in the morning?
That's what I focus on first thing, yeah.
Okay.
Gives you a lot
Saturdays,
of clarity.
Sundays, and time with your family is also really important.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yep.
I probably won't see you at OZC, or because you're on the other side of the world at the moment. Where do you live at the moment?
So I'm living in Cape Town.
Okay.
And my girlfriend's family lives in Mauritius. My mom lives in Cape Town too. So my intimate family, like my brother, my sister, my mom, they're all in Cape Town, which is amazing. It's close to home. And I spend a lot of time with family. Like, when I have free time, it's normally with my girlfriend or with my family. My brother's just had a kid. It's a very cool experience to see him being a dad. My mom, very important person to me. We lost my father about 2 years ago. So I think for me, like, if you look at my priority list, and as Adam, not as the CEO or founder of Maholla, she's been at the top of the priority list.
Got you.
In terms of spending a lot of time with her.
I'm sure you're the world's best son and brother.
And then my girlfriend.
Yeah. I'm sure you're the world's best boyfriend too.
So we spend a lot of time together, and I make sure that we get to spend lots of quality time.
Yeah. That time when you traveled, how important was that for you when you took some time off to travel?
Yeah, I think it was a very important bridge between like school and like the academic world and then the real world. So I think at school, your day is like carved out for you. At university, your day is carved out for you. And particularly at school, you didn't really decide to be there. So it's like there's sport, culture, education. If you the kind of person who wants to give of your best, like, those are the things you're going to focus on and try to do well in. And then when you get to university, like, it's the first time where it clicks, like, I've actually decided to be here and to be doing this degree. And then once I traveled and I realized, like, I actually want to build a company, it was that first time where you're like, whoa, this is this first time where you can be so intentional about what you want to do. And then also you have to be accountable for it because it's your decision.
Fun, like, for me, travel definitely, it's like reading so there's 3 areas for me. Like, when I read, anything I'm absorbing, like, helps define, like, there's new things and like lessons, and it's just like life cheat sheets, essentially.
100%.
Podcasts, but basically learning in any form. When I'm exercising, I tend to like get my best sort of thoughts and ideas around product or just life generally. I guess it's biological as well because of whatever your body's going through at that period. I don't think too much into it, but it just does happen. And then definitely travel. I would say some of the coolest ideas because you're exposed to new things. You know?
And perspective. Like when you read a book and when you travel, is like you always like come back, I guess, like with this realization, there's just so much I don't know in the world that I still need to learn, which is like definitely a grounding thing. And also it's like an intellectually curious exercise, traveling or reading, etc. And I think intellectual curiosity is such an important component in life, like asking big questions, looking at yourself and deciding whether you like, are you doing what you want to do? And if you consistently ask and answer those questions correctly, then you'll be able to give lots of energy to things.
So like perspective in a South African context is actually quite challenged because we have a population that is actually really underprivileged and education is such a big thing. And entrepreneurship for me absolutely is an answer outside of education to helping change generational, just things to help improve people's lives. What are some of the opportunities as a South African or an African entrepreneur that you think are present? And what sort of advice, if I could break it into 2 questions, would you give young South African entrepreneurs in the world that we live in at the moment?
Yeah, I think being entrepreneur in South Africa is super meaningful, as you said. I mean, like, it almost liken it to the Springbok narrative. Like, we've been watching the Springboks play, and all the commentators are always like they're playing for something bigger. And it is because, people in South Africa, they need entrepreneurship. They need us to help build the economy. And I think the thing that gets us really excited about the Maholla business is like our users are generally sort of consumers that are value driven or cash strapped, and they're going to the shops and they're making a purchase, and it's an opportunity for them to get a reward for that. So like they've spent their hard-earned money and they get a reward for doing something, which is a pretty special thing to be able to do. Like wake up every day and know you're rewarding hundreds of thousands of people for spending their hard-earned money. And I think like from an entrepreneurship perspective as a whole, we do live in a very different like world than America or Europe, where a lot of the, call it plumbing, or a lot of like the basic infrastructural elements of businesses still need to be built out, especially as you relate it to technology. It's why investors get so excited about fintech in Africa, because you're building the plumbing of financial technology or innovation, etc. So I think from a technology entrepreneurship perspective, I think entrepreneurs need to look less at the US and Europe for ideas, and kind of look more within South Africa and Africa at what problems there are to solve, and then more look philosophically at like tech hubs like San Francisco. How can we learn from the way they've built businesses? Less learn from what they are building. And I think that, geez, there's just so much opportunity here. Like my advice to young entrepreneurs here would be like, give it a go. Try build something interesting. Try build something that means something to you. And I think my last and most important thing that I would say is South Africa is much too closed off an environment. People don't help each other as much here as they do in more developed, like especially tech markets like San Francisco. Be as helpful as possible to other entrepreneurs as it relates to like introductions to investors, helping get talent, helping get off the ground. Your social capital, your social currency will grow. I think people are scared, like they know two investors, like don't introduce those guys to anyone else, like because they might not invest in you then, etc. So I think there's an opportunity for entrepreneurs to work together more and help each other out.
What do you think the reason is that's the case?
I think that there's just more of a scarcity mindset here, whereas maybe there should be more of an abundant mindset here. And I get why there's a scarcity mindset. It's a very challenging economic environment to operate in. Like if you raise a seed round here of like over $1 million, that is a real thing to aspire to. It's a very challenging thing to achieve. Whereas, if you go to tech hubs, etc., it's sort of more of the norm. So I think there's more of a scarcity mindset here, and I think that if we can develop more of an abundant mindset, it will be productive for innovation.
You're a Gen Z, right? Or you're a millennial? You're somewhere in between.
I think I'm in between.
Okay.
I'm 1996.
So you half want to own property and you half want to have experiences, or do you want both?
So I want to own it. My girlfriend and I want to own a property together for sure. She loves physical space, and like making space is beautiful. And I think that's something that I would love to do with her. So I guess we're probably old school like that, like we want a home kind of thing. But I guess we look at it from an experience perspective. Like I wouldn't necessarily be a real estate investor tomorrow because I don't understand the real estate asset class as well as you might. And I understand other asset classes better that I want to build sort of economic value in. But I think that, there's a lot of charm in owning property, but we certainly want to travel and have lots of experiences too. So that's the cop-out answer. It's hopefully we can do both.
It's like a family home.
Yeah.
Has there ever been an individual in your life who's had a massive impact on you that you'd be open to sharing a story of?
Yeah. Definitely my father. He was an architect. And I think as like architects, he was just conceptually brilliant, like in his ability to take a building from start to finish and just the way he looked at the world. So I just learned so much from him in life. And I can share many different anecdotes about how he made me think of the world. But I think what I will say, and maybe it would be relevant to you, but when I lost my father, you know, normally you think like, she's had so much to still learn from this person. But the big thing that stuck with me is that he taught me or showed me how to learn.
Yeah.
So those frameworks are still with me every day.
Awesome.
So when I have problems or face new situations in life, it's like, there's my dad, there's his frameworks. That's how he thought about the world. And that's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, for sure. He would have spent 24, 25 years shaping you as a human being.
Yeah.
And if it means anything, he did a heck of a good job, dude. I want to finish by sharing the good news. Neighbourgood is a brand that's mission is about bringing good to the world as much as possible and using space as a platform for community. And sharing good news is important. So the Maholla good news is definitely worth sharing. So I'm glad we're having this interview today with you. Do you have some good news or a story of a company or a person that you'd be open to sharing?
Jeez. I mean, something else comes to mind. Can I answer that question a bit differently?
Yeah.
I think that we're surrounded by too much bad news in the world. Like, I think that media especially is like built out in such a way now that when you turn on the news, just like overwhelming set of bad news. And I think questions like the one you've just asked are important because there is an equal, if not more amount, hopefully, of good news out there to share. And I think like, for me, good news is, when I think of good news to that question, it's no big major event. It's like giving your girlfriend a cup of tea in the morning or giving your teammate a high five when they do a good job. It's like more the detail, more the inputs and the outputs. Like, be good with the inputs and then hopefully the outputs will be good too.
Okay. Last question. Where's Adam Reilly in 10 years' time?
Where's Adam Reilly in 10 years' time? Just hopefully being a much better, kinder, more successful version of myself today. And by successful, I just mean, getting better at the things that I love to do.
Okay. Walking out the garage, going for a surf. So basically ending how you wanted to start.
Slightly less work and stress and maybe slightly more surfing, but I'm still quite young in 10 years, so I'll probably still be ambitious and have things that I want to do.
Dude, as usual, it is so awesome just being with you and learning from you. I'm 37, dude, but I feel like I learn from you every time I see you.
Shut It's always great to spend quality time with you as well.
Wish you nothing but the best, and we will be watching from the sidelines, supporting you as a leading South African entrepreneur, and we just want all the good in the world for you, dude. So thank you for being on our podcast today, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Maz. That was great.